Bismillah Rahman Rahim. My dear students, I welcome you again in my another very important talk on the teaching of listening skills. If you all remember our last talk and first talk, in fact, on the teaching of listening, it was about the importance and the functions of listening and why listening is so special and why should it be the most important thing when we come to learn first of when we come to learn the second language or the foreign language. And we had in details talked about the reasons that it is being neglected in Pakistani universities or colleges as an important component of the syllabus. So there are several reasons for listening being not taken seriously at by the syllabus designers or even by the teachers of English. So is the case with the students also. But once we go through the scholarship, the academic research that we find is that if we are not good in listening skills, we cannot be good in other skills. And this is one of the reasons you will find that all the teaching methods that we've been talking about in previous talks had been greatly focusing on reading and writing and hardly on listening and speaking. Whereas when we talked about the teaching of a language, we always we always talk about the teaching of language as communicative process. So we saw a great and a frequent shift of paradigms in the history of English language teaching, beginning from grammatical structures to audiolingualism to direct method and to communicative methodology. Then we heard about a phrase like post-method era. But now, as we are hearing another another kind of a reversal back to methods. So there are some studies telling us about, again, something to build on the communicative methodology of language teaching. One of the great reasons is that it focuses on communication skills. Now today, I would like to tell you, my dear students and learners and viewers who are watching this channel and who have subscribed this channel, that it is very important to realize the true importance of communication skills. Because as long as we do not realize the importance of communication skills and the communicative properties of English language or any language for that matter, we'll just be miles away from getting the true fruit of that language. So this is a prerequisite that we should realize the not the linguistic, not the grammatical, but the functional and the communicative part of language. So as we commonly understand that communication skills, your competence in communicative skills always defines uh, your competence, your overall competence. It defines your personality. It defines who you are, which background you belong to, and it helps the listeners who listen to you anywhere make very important decisions about your life, about your future, about your career. So this is something that we need to pay attention to, that this is just not a very common thing or just not a common tool of communication that if we know it parts, phrases, chunks, or so what. But this is something that's very critical about our life, our future, I mean, our professional life in particular. So we need to realize that with very weak communication skills, we are not going to achieve the greater communicative goals underlined in any syllabus, or that we have our own aims with those goals. So my dear students, listening is something very critical. As I said, all the other skills basically spring from this one skill, listening. And one of the true functions, in fact, of teaching listening is learning about the spoken language and developing our own language by listening to the texts that are presented in front of us, that are used by the teachers in the classroom. You all would have now enough experience of listening to your teachers in your classes for several years now. you can very honestly describe how the students listen to their teachers and how many of they understand their teachers and how many of they even do not understand their teachers. So when they are listening to their teachers, they are just somewhere taking the advantage that listening is a very passive process. So, and the teacher is not going to just point at them out. So they just keep it nodding and yes, they are there. But a very active process, listening, a very active skill requires a lot of concentration and attention and seriousness on the part of learners is in fact something that we all need to pay attention to. So once we are in our classrooms, we need to realize that it is our route to learning also. It is a very important source of learning also. So if we are disconnected, if you're not able to recognize words, if you're not going to get the pace of the teacher, we'll be lost somewhere. If we are lost once, we'll be lost maybe for the entire session. So that's why in the beginning we focused on what is listening and what is special about it and why should we learn it. All these things were in fact really very important to tell you as being the new teachers of English or the learners of English, as tomorrow you're going to teach listening skills also. So realizing that you all are teachers of English, I expect all of you to have this seriousness first of all, to understand that your communication skills, you see, if your teacher is not communicatively sound, he is not going to impress anyone in the class. So if he is poor in his communication skills, is doing sort of things that are very disappointing to many of our learners, because many of our learners of English that come to our classes are at times very fluent and very competent. Now we have got very good students exposed to English language use right from early English medium schools. So when they reach to the university, they are very good enough. At times I feel embarrassed to talk to such very good students. So when you've got students who are more competent with the teachers, more fluent than the teachers, then it is challenging for the teachers also to to meet the needs of those students. And of course, when you are a teacher, you're always a learner. So we all try to fill our gaps once we are learning and once we are talking to all the students. So today, we'll be focusing on the forms of listening. Now, there's a lot of confusion about these forms. Some people call them types of listening. Some people call them some generic names to it. But basically, when we come to the teaching of listening, once we refer to books on teaching of listening, uh, we'll find that basically there are three forms of listening. When we talk about the forms of listening, we talk about uh, that what happens once we begin uh, the process of teaching listening. So there are actually three stages. So we got pre-listening, we got while listening, and we got post-listening stage. So these are named as forms then. So what happens in the pre-listening? So pre-listening is not the kind of type of a listening. Basically, it's a form of a listening that explains and demonstrates to the students that what's going to come for them in the listening process. So when there is a listening process beginning very shortly in the class, what the student should be doing, what the teacher listening should do. Once that while listening time ends, then the teacher moves on to the post-listening part of the process. So what happens in the post-listening? We'll discuss this today in our this talk. So I'll be sharing with you the slide. And then I'll take you to where we left. We talked about the functions. Never forget these functions. Do not just listen for the sake of listening or for the sake of just replying it, just letting it go, you listen and you go. But listening is very critical to your development. So after these kinds of listening, especially about listening, principles of listening, we come today to talk about the forms of listening. Now, this is also known as the sequence for listening. Now, this sequence of listening, uh, first and foremost important thing here is the uh, that what happens if you are a teacher of listening. What are you going to do? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Are you listening to me?
Yes, now we can listen you.
I mean, are there any interruptions? I mean, is there any problem? Hello?
Sir, you had turned off your mic. That's why you did not understand your voice.
You could not listen my voice?
So now we can listen your voice, but before we can say 2 moments or 2 minutes, we were not able to listen you, sir.
All right, then probably mistakenly I have just not only muted you, but I have muted myself as well. So
Yes, sir.
I'll begin explaining to you about this now. Well, I'll have to restart then if you're not able to listen it. So let me check. I'll come back after a short while. Just have to end it up here and then I'll restart after 5 minutes. Okay?
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.